Chosen one, there is a hush in the air before you speak, as if the room itself adjusts its furniture to see you better. You have not begged for this center. It has formed around you the way a circle forms around fire. The placement is not punishment, and it is not prize. It is appointment. Something in you has come into working order. Body listening to spirit, spirit listening to God. And order emits a heat that wandering souls recognize. They drift toward it, the way the cold drift toward a hearth. You might be tempted to step out of the middle to quiet the attention, or to dramatize your presence to outrun the awkwardness of being seen. Neither is required. The center is not a stage for performance, it is a point for orientation. Your task is not to dazzle, but to give direction simply by staying aligned. Feel the hum under your ribs. Call it high energy if you like. Heaven calls it capacity. It is the same charge that gets plants lifting their faces, and rivers choosing a path, and bruised hearts trying again. In another season, you might have spent this current on spectacle. Too many rooms, too many promises, too little sleep, the calendar pretending to be a crown. This season asks for something sterner and kinder. Let the current become clarity. Let it power the lights inside your life so that those who come near can actually see. Let it warm, not scorch. Steady, not shake. The proof that you are carrying fire well is not the size of the flame, but the quality of the air around you. Does truth breathe easier? Do boundaries hold without apology? Does your pace teach the room that urgency is not the only tempo holiness knows? Being in the center exposes every edge you have not forgiven. Old stories will audition at your periphery, wearing new costumes. The memory of being overlooked will whisper that this is your chance to collect interest on every slight. The memory of being used will warn that visibility is a mouth that bites. The memory of being starved will insist that you hoard the attention while it's here, because famine arrives without notice. Do not argue with your memories. Honor them and then seat them where they cannot steer. You are not in the center because you perfected yourself. You are here because God trusts you to practice wholeness where people can see it. Practicing wholeness requires refusing the posture of debt collector and refusing the posture of coward. It requires letting honor pass through you into responsibility and letting fear dissolve in the presence of a new assignment. You do not have to manufacture meaning to justify the eyes. The meaning is in the way you choose. Watch your choosing become liturgy. You choose to answer slowly when flattery tries to rent your yes by the hour. You choose to end a conversation while your tone is still generous because you intend to respect yourself tomorrow. You choose to laugh like someone who never weaponizes delight, so laughter becomes safe for those who forgot it can be. You choose to dress your body like a person, not a product, to celebrate form without selling soul. Every such choice is an ember placed where others can find it later when their weather turns. This is what it means to be a centered flame. You make reliability warmer than spectacle. Let your feet learn the geography of this middle. A center is not a throne, it is a crossing. People will arrive carrying questions they cannot pronounce. You do not need answers as much as you need atmosphere. Calm is a language. When accusation enters, reduce the volume by asking for specifics rather than stories rehearsed for applause. When anxiety enters, lengthen the breath of the moment with a pause that does not punish silence. When need enters disguised as entitlement, keep your boundaries intact so dignity survives the interaction on both sides. You are not there to be eaten. You are there to demonstrate that power can be tender without becoming vague and tender without becoming prey. Understand that this center belongs to time as much as to you. The season is a training ground, not a permanent address. Treat it like a gym for the soul. Build muscles you will need later in quieter rooms. The muscle that says no without severing love. The muscle that receives honor without spending holiness. The muscle that keeps pace with purpose even when attention surges and begs for a sprint. Let counsel find you. 2 or 3 steady voices who love God more than they love your glow. Ask them to tap the gauge when your speed creeps or your tone sharpens. The center is the worst place to attempt isolation. The echoes are too loud. Make community your insulation, so the current you carry does not overheat your wiring. And end each day as if you are placing the fire back on the altar that lent it. Tell the truth to the one who put you in the circle. Tell him where you enjoyed being admired more than being accurate. Tell him where courage held, where gentleness won, where fatigue almost rented out your patience. Receive the correction that tastes like clean water. Receive the blessing that feels like weight removed from your shoulders. Sleep like someone who believes the center is sustained by grace, not by grind. If the circle still surrounds you tomorrow, you will meet it rested. If it moves on to another, you will not feel exiled. You will feel reassigned. Either way, the flame remains flame. Either way, you remain a steward of warmth. Chosen ones, attraction is too often framed as a test you are destined to fail or a toy you are allowed to break. This month invites you to see it as a tune. The magnetism around you is not random voltage. It is resonance. The sound a life makes when its parts stop arguing. Your body is no longer a rebellion against your spirit. Your spirit is no longer a critic of your body. Desire has met direction, and the meeting point hums. People hear it even if they cannot name the note. They call it beauty, charisma, glow. Heaven calls it agreement. Agreement is what draws eyes. Agreement is what needs guarding. Alignment does not erase appetite, it educates it. Your desire stops asking only what do I want right now and begins asking what am I building with what I want. That single shift reorders the month. The surge that used to plead for a stage becomes fuel for craft and covenant. You will feel it when you choose to pour heat into prayer until heat becomes light. When you pour it into writing until emotion becomes language that carries weight. When you pour it into leadership until charm becomes culture that outlives you. Alignment takes the raw material of attraction and mills it into usefulness. You will know you are aligned by the way attention behaves in your body. In misalignment, attention tastes like sugar and leaves you jittery, scrolling for a refill. In alignment, attention tastes like bread, simple, solid, satisfying enough that you can get back to work. Misalignment makes you a mirror that begs to be looked into. Alignment makes you a window people can see through into a larger world. The window does not demand to be adored. It needs to be clean, so you keep it that way. You wipe away the streaks of defensiveness that appear when someone misunderstands you. You scrape off the film of comparison before it distorts your view. You repair the crack that formed when flattery tried to buy your voice. That is alignment's maintenance. Short, honest habits that keep your presence transparent to purpose. Discernment becomes easier when you are tuned. The room's noise cannot counterfeit your note for long. A clean approach arrives with curiosity and pace. It asks, can we walk? A hungry approach arrives with urgency and angles. It demands, can we run now? Alignment prefers a walk. The walk makes room for listening. It lets red flags wave where sprinting would have blurred them into decoration. Aligned, you choose companions who do not require you to dim your boundaries to stay interesting. You let admiration be admiration instead of currency. You let chemistry knock, and you answer with chaperones named consent, clarity, and timing. Those companions never spoil a good story. They keep a good story from spoiling. Alignment also gives language to energy. Your sentences stop auditioning and start guiding. I'm grateful and not available. I'm curious and I need time. I'm honored and my no is still no. These little conjunctions, a sacred end, are the hinges that let doors open and close without slamming. They are how attraction becomes architecture rather than accident. Say them softly and say them on repeat until your nervous system learns that kindness and firmness are not enemies but siblings who keep the house standing. The aligned life refuses to treat the body as a billboard. It treats the body as a bell. Bells are struck by all sorts of weather and still ring true. You will be struck by praise that echoes longer than it deserves to, and by critique that arrives louder than it should. Let both strikes find you tuned. Praise will not sharpen you into cruelty. Critique will not flatten you into shame. You will adjust, but not abandon yourself. You will learn, but not lease your center to the loudest bidder. The bell is tethered to something immovable. Alignment keeps you tethered to the one who tuned you. There's a social geometry to alignment that will surprise you with its kindness. Circles that used to collapse into triangles, conversations about someone instead of with them, begin to hold their shape around truth. Meetings that used to sprint toward spectacle slow down long enough for integrity to get in the room. Dinners that used to end with a hangover of regret end with the quiet satisfaction of being fully present without being spent. You did not deliver a seminar. You delivered your pace. People adjust to it the way they adjust to weather that is simply better for breathing. Your calendar is the clearest instrument of this tuning. You set a rhythm that refuses to sell tomorrow's kindness to pay for today's applause. You schedule rest as if you trusted God to do work while you sleep. You protect creative hours from the performance of being constantly reachable. The result is a strange, generous byproduct. You become more reachable where it actually matters, because you are not threadbare when the real need arrives. Alignment is not selfish. It is strategic stewardship that makes more of you available for the right things and less of you available for the wrong ones. Let humility anchor all of this. Alignment is not a claim of perfection. It is a confession of dependence. You keep returning to the tuner. You bring him the places where your note drifted sharp in pride or flat in fear. You bring him the conversation where you enjoyed being admired more than being accurate. You bring him the message you delayed because honesty might rearrange something comfortable. He does not break the instrument. He tightens what loosened, loosens what tightened, oils what squeaked, and sends you back into a day that needs the sound only you make when you are true. And when the month is over, whether the circle of attention remains or migrates, you will not be emptied by having stood in the middle. You will be strengthened by having stood rightly. Attraction will have been translated into alignment, and alignment into a trail for others to follow without needing your hand. That is the secret reason you were placed at the center, chosen one, not to hoard heat, but to teach a temperature. Not to perform glow, but to prove governance. Not to collect witnesses, but to become a witness, living evidence that desire can be dignified, that bodies can be holy, and that chosen ones can carry months like this without being carried away. Chosen one, a month like this teaches you the weather of eyes. Some arrive like morning, clear, warm, unhurried. Some arrive like lightning, brief, loud, and gone before you can name them. Some are wells, inviting you to see yourself reflected deeper than you planned. Some are nets, thrown to drag you toward a story that does not fit your bones. Do not resent the attention. Read it. You were made the center of attraction, not to live on a stage, but to practice vision under a brightness that reveals everything. Motives, boundaries, tenderness, you still guard out of habit. The gaze of many is a chorus. Your task is to be a conductor whose hands prefer quiet accuracy to noise. Begin with your own eyes. When you walk into a room, let your gaze become a benediction and not a hook. Look as one who believes people are not inventory to be counted or leverage to be used. Look as if each face were a paragraph of God that requires consent to be read aloud. You can feel the difference when you do. Your shoulders soften, your breath remembers its length, and your tone loses the faint tremor that sells. The room takes its cue from that softness. It learns to settle. It learns that beauty is not a predator here. This is the first work of holy attention, not commanding eyes, but converting them. You cannot control the gaze of others, but you can discern its flavors. A clean gaze holds proportion. It does not inflate you to avoid seeing itself. It asks curious questions, notices your no without injury, and lets silence work. A hungry gaze negotiates terms you never offered. It reads your boundary as a price tag and your kindness as a coupon. A wounded gaze may project a savior or a villain onto your outline because it needs the world to become legible again. None of these require you to panic. Clean gaze is welcomed. Hungry gaze is answered with distance that leaves dignity intact. Wounded gaze is met with pace and clarity so it cannot conscript you into its unfinished war. You are not a mirror rented by strangers for their rehearsals. You are a window that keeps the view honest. There is a physics to attention that your nervous system already understands. Bodies calibrate to the nearest regulated presence. When eyes rush you, do not match their speed. Let your cadence slow the hallway. When eyes flatter, do not rise like a balloon. Feel your feet, remember the floor. When eyes search for weakness to exploit, do not offer a performance of strength. Offer a simple truth that has nothing to prove. These tiny acts of self-government are not dramatic, and that is precisely why they are powerful. You become a steady barometer, and in your steadiness, other hearts can finally take a clear reading of themselves. The gaze of many will try to purchase access with praise. Let compliments land without turning into corridors that lead to your private rooms. Receive the sentence, "Thank you," and keep the door. This is not arrogance, it is hospitality with a map. People will trust you more when your thresholds make sense. The ones who do not will accuse your boundaries of being walls because they have only known intimacy as trespass. Do not argue with that accusation. Demonstrate a better grammar. Invite what is ready for honesty and release what is rehearsing hunger. Heaven is not impressed by the number of guests you host. Heaven measures whether the people who stayed could breathe. There is also the quiet hazard of surveillance, attention that pretends to celebrate. You may only be collecting data to negotiate you later. Here, your best protection is simplicity. Speak the same truth in private and in public, at noon and at midnight. When your yes means yes at every temperature, the leverage seekers lose interest. Your life does not furnish them with angles because it has chosen right angles, clean lines, clear corners, no hidden alcoves for gossip to nest. Integrity may not be glamorous under flashing lights, but it is the only fabric that does not tear when grasped. Do not let 1,000 eyes turn you into 1,000 selves. You will be tempted to shapeshift, sharper for the critical crowd, sweeter for the hungry one, louder for the bored, smaller for the threatened. The cost of that costume changes daily and always comes due. Choose instead the honest size of your soul today. Let your commitments dress you. Let your calling set your volume. Let your promises choose your posture. Those who hope to choreograph you will be disappointed. Those who needed someone to model intactness will exhale. Learn the art of soft focus. Not every look requires a response. Not every request deserves an audience. When attention tries to trap you in the loop of "look at how much they are looking," break the loop by turning your eyes to something truer. Your work, your prayer, your friend who needs a listening ear with no spotlight. Do not punish gazes for being gazes. Simply refuse to become a mirror maze. A life with windows outlives a life of mirrors. Windows let light in and let your sight out toward horizons that refuse to be reduced to applause. At night, when the eyes are gone and the screens are dark, ask the question that keeps you human. What did my attention worship today? If it bowed to praise, it will need detox. If it bowed to fear, it will need consolation. If it bowed to purpose, it will be at peace. Bring the answer to God without varnish. Let Him restore the shape of your seeing so tomorrow your presence can be a lens again, not a lure. The gaze of many is real, chosen one, but it is not your God. Let it pass over a life too consistent to be swayed and too tender to be hardened, and it will become what it was always meant to be, a witness, not a warden. Chosen ones, what draws others to you this month is not chase, but gravity. Gravity is not loud, it is law. It does not beg, it holds. Planets do not make speeches to keep moons nearby. They move faithfully on their paths and orbits form. Your beauty is behaving like that, steady, centered, predictable in the best sense. The impulse to pursue every comet that streaks brightly across your sky will subside as you understand the dignity of mass. Mass in a soul is integrity. The more integrity, the truer the pull. The truer the pull, the calmer the system around you. Gravity teaches you to bless orbit and to release drift. Some people will swing near at apogee, wave from a safe distance, and continue. They are meant to see your light and be oriented, not to stay. Some will settle into stable paths, companionable, reciprocal, respectful of your tides and their own. A few will try to slingshot around you for speed, using your steadiness to escape their consequences. You owe none of them panic. Stabilize what is committed. Signal kindly to what is passing. Refuse to be used as a launchpad for someone else's avoidance. Your task is not to hold everything. Your task is to be holdable for those whose assignment truly belongs in your field. The parameters of a healthy orbit are set by boundaries, not by chemistry. Chemistry can ignite a rocket. Only boundaries can sustain a circle. You decide the distance at which relationships remain life-giving. You decide the velocity at which conversations can travel without burning up on re-entry. You decide the seasons in which access expands or contracts. This is not control. It is celestial courtesy. When you set these parameters clearly, people learn how not to collide with you, how not to strip your atmosphere with constant entry, how not to leave debris that becomes shrapnel later. The space around a governed soul becomes safer for everyone who flies there. Gravity is patient with timing. Objects that belong to you will not need to be chased. They will find their level. Objects that do not belong will translate your stillness as a refusal and move on. Trust that movement. Chasing comets makes good cinema and bad formation. You will feel the pull to sprint after a spark because old scarcity still whispers that any brightness is better than a long night. Let wisdom answer the whisper. A hearth outlasts fireworks, and you are building a hearth. If something is meant to warm your life, it will return at a pace that protects the flame rather than draining the woodpile. Your gravity bends narratives, the way massive objects bend light. Stories told about you will try to curve around the truth. Some will make you larger than you are, some smaller. Do not spend your orbit arguing with every beam. Add mass where it matters. Repeat the choices that keep you true, and the curvature will correct over time. People who need accuracy more than entertainment will find it because your track is consistent. This is the humility of gravity. It convinces without theatrics. It clarifies without press releases. There is a phenomenon in the heavens called resonance. Bodies syncing their rhythms so that orbits become mutually reinforcing. Seek resonance, not reliance. Reliance collapses into you and calls it love. Resonance stands beside you and calls it covenant. In resonance, your work does not cancel theirs. Your voice does not drown theirs. Your calling does not eclipse theirs. Instead, the music of your paths prevents both of you from drifting into chaos. You will know resonance by the way your peace rises in their company, without you needing to shrink or swell. Keep those alliances. They are constellations forming, and constellations guide travelers far beyond your sightline. Tidal forces are real. Even healthy gravity creates tides, pulls on the heart, the schedule, the body. Pay attention to what your presence raises in others and in you. If proximity continually produces storms for someone, the distance is wrong or the vessel is leaking. Adjust lovingly. If proximity produces productive tides, creativity, prayer, courage, honor that by scheduling nourishment, not just output. Gravity without kindness becomes tyranny. Gravity with kindness becomes climate. You are tasked with climate, not conquest. Ego will try to counterfeit mass. It will add noise to feel heavy, add urgency to feel necessary, add mystery to feel deep. These additions make a field unstable. True mass is quiet because it comes from the density of kept promises. The promise you made to God about your honesty, to your body about its rest, to your craft about its excellence, to your community about your presence. Keep those and the field strengthens. Break them and velocity may increase for a dazzling loop or two. But decay is baked into the orbit. Dazzle will not warn you when it is almost out of fuel. Discipline will keep a ledger. In practical terms, the gravity within you sets routines that look almost unremarkable. You eat to think, not to punish or perform. You stop when the day is still kind so tomorrow does not begin in apology. You answer in hours, not in heartbeats. When the question touches your future, you pray in sentences small enough to carry all day. Keep me true, let my yes be shelter. You do the next faithful thing even when the crowd begs you to perform the next flashy thing. The universe favors such math. Rooms start using you as a reference point, not because you insisted on the center, but because your orbit refused melodrama and offered reliability. Finally, remember that gravity is not ownership. Those who stay near are not yours. They are entrusted to your influence for a time. Use that influence to make them more themselves, not more dependent on you. If your field is working, people will stand taller, not merely closer. They will leave when called, and you will bless the leaving without bitterness because departure is not betrayal in a well-governed sky. You will feel the tug, of course. Tides are honest. But you will remain intact and generous because staying true to your path is how you honor every path that ever intersected yours. So move with the weight of a kept soul, chosen one. Let your integrity do the pulling and your boundaries do the shaping. Let your patience prove what pursuit cannot. Let your steadiness write laws that chaos cannot repeal. In time, the system around you will settle. Orbits will clarify. Comets will pass without stealing your sleep. And when someone asks why this sky feels kinder than most, you will smile the small, unadvertised smile of a body at peace with its own gravity and say the truth in words light enough to travel far. I stayed aligned, and alignment did the rest. Chosen one, call it what you will, heat, voltage, life force. The surge running through you this month is not a scandal, it is a current. Currents are immoral until they are directed. In a wire, they power cities. In a storm, they split trees. The difference is governance. What you feel in your bones is usable power asking for wise architecture. You were not made the center of attraction to hoard attention like batteries stacked in a closet. You were placed where eyes convene so that the energy could be converted, not merely displayed. Conversion is your craft now, turning ache into creation, attention into atmosphere, magnetism into meaningful motion. Begin by treating your body like a grid rather than a billboard. A billboard begs to be looked at. A grid is built to carry power to places that need light. When desire surges, do not reach for the nearest distraction or the quickest validation. Walk it through your circuits. Let it move with your breath until urgency loosens its fist and the signal beneath the noise reveals itself. Many impulses hide messages inside them like lightning hides nitrogen for the soil. Ask the heat what it is for. Sometimes it is asking you to make pages, melodies, designs that will outlast the month. Sometimes it is asking you to repair a conversation postponed because truth might rearrange comfort. Sometimes it is asking you to rest because the voltage you feel is not inspiration at all. It is fatigue auditioning as fervor. A well-governed grid knows the difference, and you are learning the switches. The world will try to monetize your current as a spectacle. It will urge you to broadcast every spark, to turn private wonder into public product, to exchange governance for views. Refuse the conversion of your life into content. Not everything holy makes good footage. Keep the part of your radiance that belongs to covenant, to prayer, to the unmarketed quiet where strength grows roots. When you do share, let it be an overflow, not a negotiation. A river does not prove it exists by flooding, it proves it by irrigating. Your yes and your no are now circuit breakers. The right no protects the house, the right yes powers it. A clean no to a misaligned invitation keeps your future from brownouts that would leave whole rooms in shadow. A clear yes to work that requires focus will light corridors for people you will never meet. The breaker does not shout, it clicks, and the clicking is mercy. Let your sentences click. I'm honored, and I'm keeping my pace. I'm grateful, and that access is not available. I'm curious, and I need clarity before I commit. These small clicks prevent large fires. They teach those who draw near that warmth in your presence is free, and access inside your wiring is earned. Steward the body's rituals as if they were substations. Sleep is not a luxury. It is maintenance. Water is not an afterthought. It is a conductor. Movement is not punishment. It is a way to let voltage distribute instead of not. Scripture is not decoration. It is the code that keeps your grid from being hijacked by every surge. Prayer is not a performance. It is the control room where you learn the day's load and the day's limits. When you honor these rituals, your energy stops spiking wildly and starts flowing like law-abiding lightning. Brilliant, but not destructive. You will meet people who come to borrow your power. Some want to plug purposes into you that are heavier than your calling can carry. Others will try to wire their needs directly to your panel and call it romance, mentorship, or collaboration. Do not shame them. Give them outlets appropriate to the relationship and amperage appropriate to your capacity. Teach gently where their own generators are. Your glow is not a public utility funded by self-erasure. Your task is to demonstrate that power can be shared without being surrendered, that intimacy can be warm without becoming a siphon. Let your craft be a kiln where this current becomes form. Kilns run hot and they run measured. They cure clay into vessels that hold. Pour your heat into practices that produce shape. Set hours that expect your presence, whether or not inspiration arrives with a parade. Keep promises to your craft, because promise-keeping is how energy becomes legacy. When the piece is done, song, policy, letter, blueprint, send it into the world as a finished artifact rather than a cry for attention. Artifacts do work long after applause forgets its own hands. Remember that not all power needs expression. Some power needs containment. Holding can be holy. There are days when silence is stewardship, when you let energy ripen instead of rushing it to market as performance. A fruit picked too soon never sweetens. Your restraint is not repression, it is ripening. You will know the difference by the aftertaste. Repression curdles into shame, ripening deepens into joy. Joy has this habit of making your presence feel like shelter rather than spectacle. People will come near and feel more themselves, not less. That is proof you are carrying current as blessing. Learn the topography of your triggers. High energy finds the fault lines quickly. Places where flattery made promises it could not keep. Where loneliness still mistakes intensity for intimacy. Where ambition confuses acceleration with anointing. Mark those ridges on your map like an honest cartographer. Invite trusted voices to walk the edge with you when the weather threatens. Accountability is not someone else holding your leash. It is someone else holding a lantern while you hold your standard. In a month of voltage, lanterns prevent cliffs from masquerading as shortcuts.